Welcome to From the Shed End, the 100th episode of From the Shed End. Theo, how you doing?
Not bad. Like I just mentioned to you before we started to record, it's Friday. I'm always in a good mood on Friday afternoon. Looking forward to the weekend. Promising weather in London, and also Chelsea not playing this weekend, not until Monday evening. So I can just enjoy the Premier League football and not worry too much about Chelsea's performance until the start of the following week. But like you mentioned, episode 100, a really big milestone. I think we started to record in April 2021. So it's been, I think, almost good 2 years now of recording, almost over 2 years actually, and it's been really enjoyable. And I didn't really think we'd get to 100 so quickly, and a lot of therapy sessions in that time, a lot of successful moments, Champions League, winning the Champions League, and talking about that, the Tuchel sacking, the Graham Potter appointment, the takeover of Thomas Boehly, and the sanctions period. We kind of were there for all of that and kind of giving our thoughts and opinions on it all. So it's been definitely a roller coaster, a couple of years of recording, and a roller coaster 100 episodes, but really enjoyable. So looking forward to cracking into the 100th episode now. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, and I definitely echo everything you just said. You know, it's been a journey, obviously, and I think I said to you maybe last week that there's not many podcasters that even see their 100 episode. There really isn't. Some people dive into it and they stop, or they give it a break and they come back to it years later or months later. So it's a massive achievement for us and for all our listeners. You know, we're definitely appreciative of everyone who's tuned in and, you know, has interacted with us or has listened to the podcast on an audio or visual, interacts with the social accounts as well. So it's all definitely appreciated, and, you know, hopefully it continues for. And obviously, as we said before we came online, we will be, I think we said it last week as well, I can't even talk. I'm that excited. We're going to be running a competition over the next 4 weeks. So for the next 4 weeks, and a date to be agreed, or a day to be agreed for each of those weeks, we'll be running a competition. There'll be a lot of information coming out on our social accounts, so make sure that you hit the Linktree link in the description. The competition will run from October to the end of October. Some decent prizes to be won as well, so make sure you keep an eye out for that on the Instagram account, the Twitter account, and obviously the YouTube account as well, for more information. And make sure you enter as well to make sure you're in it to win it. So I mean, we want to talk obviously about some of our fondest memories as Chelsea fans later in the episode, but let's go back to the Carabao Cup, a game that, if I'm honest, I thought we were going to lose because of just the form that we're in and the form that Brighton were in. But I thought this is probably a competition that Maurizio Pochettino has to take a lot of seriousness into, because this could be a season-defining thing for him in terms of trying to get a trophy, trying to put the season back on some sort of decent track or after the start in the Premier League. But what was your thoughts on the game, first of all? What was your initial thoughts on the lineup? 3 left-backs in the team.
Yeah, I think we were both a bit kind of perplexed by the lineup, having Maatsen, Cucurella and Chilwell all starting. I don't think anyone could have expected that. And like you just mentioned, it's a game that Pochettino really needs to take seriously, given it was Brighton and it's very good opposition, but also due to the fact that this is probably our only chance of silverware this season. The Carabao Cup, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near winning the Premier League, and top 4, top 6 would be a huge achievement in itself. Then FA Cup, we've struggled in the last couple of years. We've got to the final and failed at the last hurdle, so I'm not sure we're going to progress there either. And knowing our luck, we might be drawn with a City or Liverpool in the first round. But yeah, I thought it was a game that we really need to take seriously. Stamford Bridge as well, home advantage. This type of game where, given the opposition, you know, any kind of result or win could have spurred a bit of confidence into the squad, given that we've just beaten a very good team, and take that form into the Premier League kind of a run of games we've got throughout October. Lineup, I thought makes sense. Maybe I had in my kind of predicted 11 or favoured 11. I had Washington, given that Brozier, Pochettino mentioned pre-match that he would only be given max 20-25 minutes. And Jackson at the time, I thought he'd be suspended. I didn't know that his 1-match ban only applied to the Premier League and not the League Cup. And also maybe I would have dropped him either way, just because he hasn't really been kind of finding the back of the net. I would have maybe given someone like Washington a chance. But I'm pretty pleased for Jackson. He got his goal. He got a well-taken chance. I thought Cole Palmer's pass was fantastic. The assist through the legs of the defender to find Jackson. That being said, I still think there's a lot of areas of his game he needs to improve. Nicholas Jackson, you know, he was quite wasteful at times. He forced the keeper, I think Van de Bruggen, I think his name is, into a fantastic save at one point. But something else I've noticed, we saw that 4 of his 5 yellow cards were for dissent, so getting to the ref's face. And something else he needs to improve is he goes down very easily and just stays on the ground for far too long when play is carrying on around him. So he needs to kind of just man up a bit, get up and play to the whistle, and not kind of force play to a halt when it comes to just pretending or trying to get a foul or staying on the floor for a bit too long. Other areas of the game that I was impressed with, I mentioned Cole Palmer, but I thought Cucurella, a player that I've criticised a lot in the last year and a half or so, but I thought he was fantastic, given that he was playing in his unnatural position at right back, or I think right wing back at times. I thought he was really dominant, winning a lot of aerial duels, winning the ball back, and he had to deal with Matoma for a lot of the time, and Estupiñán as well. I thought he did really well. I don't know if that was because he was playing against his old team, his old employers, and had a point to prove. But either way, he was fantastic, and I really hope now that can give a bit of confidence in the Prem as well, because we saw that Ben Chilwell is now going to be out for 6 weeks or so with a hamstring injury. So it's a perfect chance now for Cucurella to show what he's worth, show why Chelsea spent 60-odd million on him, and now slot back into the Pochettino's thinking and plans. Other than that, Broja got a couple more minutes. That's great as well. Washington, one I mentioned, I thought I would have liked to see him play. He was on the bench warming up in front of me. And last thing I'll say is I think that was my first time sat in the East Lower for well over a year now. And I always used to sit there, always used to get wins. Now I'm back sat there and we won. So maybe it's a sign, maybe it's an omen that I should stay there. All of last season, I was in the West Lower shed, other stands, but never the East Lower. I'm very superstitious, so maybe it's a sign that I should just get my tickets in the East Lower from now on. But yeah, really pleased that we're through to the 4th round now, and I think it's Blackburn Rovers at home. We're playing on the 1st of November, which is quite a good tie. I know they're doing quite well in the Championship, and they beat Cardiff 5-2. But given the opposition and the other names in the hat, I think that's a brilliant draw for us and another home tie. It's very kind of fortunate to have played 3 games in a row at home in the League Cup, so we'll take it.
Yeah, I think it's. I read a stat. I think Blackburn has scored the most goals in the Carabao Cup so far this season, so they know the back of the net. But we have to. I mean, look, it was a performance that I was very worried about before the kickoff. Looking at the lineup and seeing 3 left backs, and I think I said to you, they're like buses. You want 1 and then 3 turn up. So, we hadn't been playing with a left back. We had 2 on the bench against Villa, 2 on the bench, I think, against Bournemouth. Probably 2 on the bench against Luton as well. At one point, Forest maybe the same. So to see 3 start in one game. And it works. I mean, he got it tactically correct. I thought very much like you just said, Marc Cucurella is one that I've criticised as well heavily on the podcast and, in WhatsApps or whatever. And he put in a man of the match performance, let's be honest. Him, I was impressed with. So and Mudryk as well, again, someone who sort of hasn't really hit the potentials that we know he can. But the last 2 games, he's shown us that he can take that role on. He can be the player that we need. I was impressed with Cole Palmer. I really was, to see someone so close to the striker in terms of Jackson and being able to feed that ball into him. And even the goal that was ruled offside, that shouldn't have been offside. I mean, we were just seeing things that we hadn't really got to see with someone else playing in that 10 role. And I thought, Cole Palmer's exactly what we need in that position to do that. The one criticism I do have of anyone was Leslie Ogunchukwu, who I thought was very, very, very lucky to stay on the pitch. And I was surprised that he played the full game because I think at one point, he should have potentially got a red card or a second yellow at least.
I didn't watch that. They didn't show that in the highlights. Is that when he lunged in with 2 feet, was it? Or
yeah. It was just...
It looked like he won the ball in the stadium, but it was a very kind of like almost... a bit of a nervy moment for the fans, just waiting for the ref to put his whistle to his lips, but luckily he didn't. But yeah, a bit of a weird one to watch.
He's probably lucky VAR wasn't in play, because I think had they gone to look at that, they might have, had second thoughts. But I think it was difficult for him because I felt at one point he was almost playing as the only defensive midfielder, and when you've got the likes of I thought Mahmoud Dahoud had a really good game for Brighton. I thought he was really good. Obviously, Ansu Fati as well. Like you mentioned, Matoma. So I think it was a game that and I haven't even gone to Sanchez yet, but Sanchez, heart and stomach moments. I think twice, trying to play out from the back, and it was just basic stuff. And
kicking the
you know,
ball
we've
out of
seen,
play too many times as well. Simple kind
yeah,
of passes, and he was just not finding the man, or just kicking out for a Brighton throw in. And that's
yeah.
maybe where
So
we
that,
miss Kepa just from a distribution perspective.
yeah,
But some good saves at some points.
he did. And I was going to say that, you know, we've seen the best of him in the last, or what we think of the best of him in the last couple of games, especially against Aston Villa. But those little tiny things, you know, playing out from the back and just not working. And like you said, the distribution wasn't there. But look, Blackburn's a team that we know we can beat. And even with our form, we should be trying to win. For me personally, should be trying to win the League Cup. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel we should be trying to progress. And you know, this is I think you still get a foot into Europe with winning the League Cup. So theoretically, yeah, mathematically, we can still do well in the Premier League. But this is silverware. It's still something that we shouldn't really be, turning our noses up at. You know, this is something that we can go on to win a day out at Wembley as well. So I think we should be going all out to win it.
100%, yeah. I look back at when we were in the final against Liverpool and lost on pens. You know, that's the last time we were in a cup final, same with the FA Cup, and these are the kind of opportunities we should have taken. It's still silverware at the end of the day. When you talk about the treble or the domestic double, these trophies are included in there. So I definitely think for Pochettino, who's manager, who's never won any silverware in England, I think if he can get his hands on the League Cup, he'd be really happy, and it would be kind of a good start to his time at Chelsea and his tenure at Chelsea, given the kind of young crop of players he's got, and hopefully that can give these players kind of confidence, like I said, take that form into the Premier League or the following season as well. They've got their hands on silverware, the likes of Mudryk, Ugochukwu, who you just mentioned, Colwill. I'm sure they maybe won trophies with the England international, Colwill and Madueke, the
Yeah.
21s, but they've never won anything kind of with that club level. So in a senior team at least, so it would be a great kind of opportunity for them. It's still very early. I mean, we're in the fourth round, but I think we need to take them one thing at a time. But like you said, it's definitely an opportunity for us to get some hands on silverware.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Now, you mentioned obviously Ben Chilwell, Reece James is already injured, and now Ben Chilwell will be out for, I think it's 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury that's been confirmed today by Mauricio Pochettino. Leaves us very short in terms of, well, especially on the right side. You know, Malagusto's starting or will continue his ban on Monday against Fulham. No Reece James. You know, Marc Cucurella played there on Wednesday night, but I mean, we are very short in that department now in terms of right back. Zazi's, I think, played the best part of 60 minutes or wherever it was on the week game at the weekend. But who would you play at right back? I mean, obviously we're not spoilt for choice.
Yeah, I think I did see something on Twitter that they're expecting maybe Reece James to be fit for the Burnley game, which is in a few weeks' time. But I don't like hearing that, because it's almost like they're rushing him back now that we've lost another fullback. So I'd rather maybe keep him in the rehabilitation room for a bit longer, and maybe bring him back midway through October, or maybe for the Arsenal-Brentford game. But yeah, it's another blow, losing Chilwell. I think it's his third hamstring injury now in the last season, or the last calendar year and a bit. The amount of times that he's just gone down on the ground, and you just see him kind of that same position as well, his legs stretched out, and he's kind of got his hands on his thighs, and you just know it's the same injury. And the fact he stayed on the ground for a bit too long, I knew straight away. And we were playing, I think, 10 men for the last 5 minutes, because he was forced off. So yeah, for Fulham game on Monday, I think Poch has got a bit of a decision if he plays Disasi there at right back, or if he plays Cucurella again at right back, who had a very good game, like we both mentioned, and maybe he plays a Maatsen or a Colwill at left back. I think even Pochettino is a bit unsure yet on his decisions for the lineup. I think he said in his press conference he's still got a lot to think about in the next few days, see who's fit, who's not fit, kind of tactically what works in training. But it's good to see that Cucurella can play there. I think it's definitely an option. And we were kind of spoiled with left backs, and now we're left with 2. So next thing you know, we might be left with 1 if injuries don't go away. But I think I would rather go with 2 natural fullbacks. So I'd rather go with Cucurella right back and Maatsen left back, with Colwill and Thiago Silva as a centre-back partnership. But maybe we'll cover that a bit more detail when we talk about the Fulham preview, but I think that's what I would go for.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a tricky one, I think, for Pochettino. I think he's... And this is where, again, I do feel... I don't want to say I feel sorry for him, but I do feel a sense of... his hands being forced slightly, because, he hasn't. I don't think since he's taken the job on, he's had a fully fit squad. And when he, especially in the Premier League anyway. But this is where I kind of give him a bit more a leeway in terms of we can't assess him really until Nkunku's back in the team, until Reece James is fully fit and back in the team. Lavia, we still haven't. He hasn't laced his boots up for us yet. So, we still have players that we do want to come into this team and to do something. But it would be an interesting one. Obviously in the week as well, I think it was after the game or maybe before the game on Brighton, but the FA came out and said that they are looking into comments that were made by Reece James after the Aston Villa game, which potentially, I think it's today actually, that Chelsea have got to respond by in terms of the appeal process. But it looks like he's going to be facing some sort of ban. And I suppose one of the questions I've got as well is, I wonder when that ban will come in. Does it come in immediately while he's injured, or do we wait for him to come back? Because I don't think I can ever remember a time when a player who's injured is, and I was trying to think of this when this news came out, but I was trying to think of a time when a player's been banned or is expected to be banned whilst being injured. I can't remember a time when this has happened. So when does the ban come in? Because surely it's with effect from week commencing the 2nd of October, which is, if it is, perfect, because he's injured anyway, he's not going to be back. But what's your thoughts on that as well? I mean, if it is the case that he won't be, the ban won't kick in until he's fully fit and he's able to play football, it is another dilemma for Pochettino potentially.
Yeah, you got me thinking now how it's going to work, because I know that when managers kind of badmouth refs in kind of post-match conferences or interviews, their ban comes in immediately, and next thing you know, the next game they're not on the sidelines. So you'd think with Reece James, sure, he's banned for the next maybe couple games, but that might work in his favour because he was not going to be in a team anyway. Yep. So you'd hope that's the case. And then when he's fit again, he can kind of be immediately back involved once more of the matchday squad. And what I think of it, we were all frustrated, the players, the fans, that game against Aston Villa. I spoke about it on the episode 99, or the Aston Villa post-match reaction.
Review, yeah.
The referee blew for half-time 2 minutes before he should have. Emiliano Martinez time wasting. The Malagusta red card, I thought it was potentially an orange card. It was in between yellow and red. But I think maybe Reece James, now that he's captain, he loves the club, he's passionate. Maybe doesn't show it as much because he's quite shy and quiet and reserved kind of with what he does. But I think he is very passionate. And he probably confronted the ref in a tunnel at halftime or full time and probably used some kind of abusive word or foul language, which has kind of triggered this ban or fine. But sometimes it's something that maybe you'd expect more from a young player, but you wouldn't expect someone maybe like of Thiago Silva or Raheem Sterling, someone who's a bit more experienced, to do something like that. And as well, these referees, like, not I'm playing devil's advocate here, but they're just so protected nowadays. They're so protective. You can't even get in their face anymore and kind of contest the decision. And that's why Jackson's got his 4 yellow cards. So I think they're so protected now, and the kind of PG, what is it called? PGMOL.
MOL.
Yeah, that's the one. They're doing everything possible just to like protect them and defend them, and almost they're untouchable in a way. So I think they should be kind of, they shouldn't be immune to criticism, but at the same time, if we don't know what kind of word he used to kind of insult him or badmouth him. So I think he needs to be careful on that front as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said to you, I think last year, or maybe it was this year, I think it was last year, I do think Reece James's days are numbered. And it's unfortunate. I think very similar to Ben Chilwell. I just don't see how. I mean, it's good that we've got Malo Gusto. If this was last season, we would have been talking maybe about a Cesar Azpilicueta or someone else filling in that role. So, obviously it doesn't change anything for Monday's game, but if he is to be banned after his injury, then at least we know we've got Malo Gusto as a backup. But like you just said, I kind of put Reece James in that category of players, especially as the captain as well. I get passion, I get, the frustration, especially as a captain as well, your boyhood club, you're seeing these stupid errors made by these referees, but just compose yourself a little bit more. You're captain now as well. You've got to lead by example. Potentially you've got yourself banned for, a game, maybe 3 games, could be more, depending on the severity of the altercation or the discussion or whatever it was between the ref and Reece James. So just compose yourself, conduct yourself a bit more better now. You've got to you're representing the club whilst you're there anyway. So I think it's a silly one. I think it's a really silly one. You're injured. we're dropping like flies at the moment. In terms of injuries, Nicholas Jackson picked up I know he's suspended as well, but he picked up like a wrist injury. So I mean, he's quite
I
lucky
saw
as
an
well.
Instagram picture. He had like a strap over his wrist on Instagram.
Yeah, he looked bad when he done it. I think he just landed awkwardly. It could be a fracture or a sprain, but we don't have the best injury records, the last couple of seasons. So for me, it's just compose yourself a little bit more as the captain. I suppose is in my way, you should be just leading by example. Very very young squad, like we said before, and Reece James probably goes in that category of very influential in the dressing room, very influential character. So just compose yourself a little bit more. So hopefully it comes of nothing. Hopefully we can appeal. Hopefully he gets away with it. But being Chelsea, I just don't think that's going to be possible. So it will be a bit unfortunate for him. But going back to Cole Palmer, and also tying into obviously the Fulham game, which we'll talk about slightly later on. But just talking about Cole Palmer, do you agree that there was differences? A lot of the fans said that there was a lot of differences we got to see with maybe Enzo filling in that role recently. Conor Gallagher's done that previously in that 10 role. But do you feel that Cole Palmer coming in adds and brings something different to that attacking line for us?
Yeah, definitely brings a bit more flair and pace, I feel. He's also a lot more willing to take players on, whereas Enzo's a lot more kind of looking for that long ball, kind of staying in the middle of the pitch, passing it kind of towards his sides. But yeah, Enzo really, I think he's a very good kind of offensive midfielder, but I think he also plays more naturally as a kind of a centre mid, and kind of seeing Palmer in that number 10 position I thought was brilliant, and he looked like he always lifted his head looking for a forward pass, willing to take players on. When he did drift to the kind of left wing or right wing, he always again looked to take players on, dribble past players, and I think that kind of assist he played for Jackson's goal was the kind of cherry on the cake. Through the defender's legs, found Jackson, and that was something that we've just missed so many times. If that was maybe someone like Sterling or whoever else, you just know maybe he'd be turning backwards or not being able to find that pass. So I think that Cole Palmer's performance was fantastic, and that was his first start for Chelsea as well. And I think Pochettino's been praising him in the recent press conference that just got held today. And I think he also indicated that he's in line to start against Fulham at Craven Cottage on Monday as well.
Good news to hear. Good news to hear. Now, hopefully, I don't think we will be, but hopefully, obviously, the news came out earlier on this week as well around official announcement, which should have happened, I think, yesterday or the day before, around our shirt sponsor, which in a way I'm kind of disappointed about, because I like the kit. And anyone who's listening to this who hasn't, for some reason, not been on the Chelsea website or been to the mega store or actually watched the Chelsea game in the last couple of weeks, you'll notice that obviously we don't have a kit sponsor so far for this season. But Infinite Athlete have finally, by the looks of it, agreed with Chelsea to be the sponsor for the main shirt kit sponsor for the remainder of this season. But I mean, I was saying on a separate podcast, it just shows the lack of marketing expertise that we currently obviously have in the club at the moment, to be able to only be getting this deal done in October when the kit release is normally August, or in some cases July. You're normally wearing the last game of the season, which doesn't really happen all the time now, but the last game of the season you're normally wearing next season's kit, and we didn't even have that sorted. But I know you're sort of on the fence about the sponsorship anyway, and the type of kit that we've got this season. But are you going to buy it without the shirt sponsor? Did you want to get it with the sponsor? I mean, which side of the fence are you?
I think it's a stunning kit, but I want to see good performances on the pitch before I kind of invest money in the club, or go to even walk into the mega store and invest time and energy. But yeah, I think it looked very, very clean without the sponsor. I think aesthetically looking, it's not too bad. It could have been one of those. I think we were linked to State.com in the summer. So I think it's a massive kind of step up from that. But like you said, just from kind of a business and marketing perspective, as soon as we found out that 3 weren't going to renew their contract, or we weren't going to renew our contract with them, we should have just been looking for sponsors. And it just felt like we kind of panicked or left it late. It was like we weren't sure if we were going to go ahead with Infinite Athlete, or if we were. And I think when the players did their kind of kit media day photos, there's kind of leaked pictures of them also doing it with the kit with Infinite Athlete. So it looks like it's something that's kind of been planned but hasn't been announced yet, which makes me think, what have we been doing in the last couple of months? Why has it not been announced? Have we just been still negotiating? Have we been talking to other brands and companies about getting more money from them? But yeah, I think now in terms of my decision to buy the kit, I want to see good performances, but I may panic in the next few days, that being said, and just run to the Megastore and get it without the kit, because I think they said it was going to be announced, I think, on Wednesday, and it still hasn't been announced. Then I saw someone else tweet, quite a reliable source, say that we're going to wear a kit with Infinite Athlete against Fulham on Monday, which doesn't seem likely now because we still haven't announced it. So unless we announce it over the weekend, then it gets done before Monday, possibly. But again, it's one that I feel like all those rumours came out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and now it's got a bit quiet again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go another month without a kit sponsor.
I was just
Or
about to
the
say,
season again.
yeah.
Like it almost seems like it's a little like rumor that just pops up every other month, then kind of goes quiet. But no, it's looking more and more likely now, and I think it's only a matter of time. To be fair.
I think it goes back to that point that we've probably both made on and offline as well around, the club now being a franchise, being more of a business as opposed to a club. And I think one of the things possibly is maybe the club wasn't happy with the numbers being drawn together for the sponsorship, and maybe they wanted more money, or the length of the sponsorship deal just wasn't right for the club, or vice versa. The club wanted the sponsorship for a lot longer. It just seems very messy and chaotic. And based on what we're seeing on the pitch, you can understand probably both sides of why the club aren't performing as they should be, because of things that's probably happening off field as well. And people might say, well, it doesn't really matter what sponsor you're wearing, but if those kind of sporadic sort of decisions or things are chaos behind the scenes, it will spill out onto the training grounds, which then spill out onto the pitch. It's such a bizarre. I mean, at this point, you think just keep it as it is, because as I said, you're talking about you're almost 2 months into a season, and I think Inter Milan might have done something similar maybe last season. I think they had it.
They had
Paramount.
digital They had a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency company that went bankrupt. I think a week before the Champions League final, and somehow I think Paramount managed to get their name on their kits for the Champions League final. I think they've still got them now. And I think we were being linked to the Paramount at one point as our front of shirt sponsor. Wouldn't have surprised me with the kind of LA, California connection with Todd Bowley. But yeah, I think it's something that does kind of impact things behind the scenes. We saw the kind of how toxic things were worked out with Free, our previous kit sponsor, when they kind of jumped ship during the sanctions and kind of didn't want their name anywhere around Stamford Bridge. Whereas kind of Trivago stayed a bit more loyal and said, we've got a contract, we're gonna stay at Chelsea, and they were more than happy to have Trivago's name on the billboards and around Stamford Bridge. So I do think a kit sponsor is quite important as well. And when a couple of years when we talk about best looking kits as well, you never know, this one might be kind of up there on the list. We still talk about the kind of cores, the Auto Glass and the Samsung kits. So from a kind of a memorabilia or nostalgia perspective, it's going to be quite important. So it's always quite interesting from that perspective as well.
Yeah, very true. I didn't look at it from that aspect, but yeah, we still talk about, the 96, 97, 98 kit as well. So, and this kit is really, it looks, I haven't seen it in the flesh yet, but it looks amazing. It looks good. And to be fair, we've been treated pretty crap in terms of kits the last couple of seasons. I was looking at Arsenal's kit. They've brought out like a gender neutral kit, which looks actually very good. I know Aston Villa have had issues as well. It's not just us having issues with their kits. Apparently, the Villa players are not happy because the kit apparently makes them sweat more, which makes the kit heavier. So they're complaining. I think it's Castor, I think is their sponsor. They're meant to be getting dropped apparently in the next couple of days unless they can resolve that. So it just seems maybe it's a new thing with businesses now. They want to get the money right, but they also want the product to be right as well. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Bit of a strange one.
I was listening to the Peter Crouch podcast, and they were talking about like their favorite kits to have worn in the past, and exactly what you mentioned. I think Peter Crouch said there was one team he played for. I forgot which one it was. It might have been Burnley or something, and the kit was just way too tight on him. Or it might have been Sidwell talking about it, and it just kind of, like you said, it makes you sweat more, it makes you a bit more uncomfortable, it makes you have to readjust it a few times, so it does affect your performances. I'm sure that we're talking about a sponsor here, not the actual kit, which is designed by Nike.
Different things.
But when we talk about the manufacturers, I used to remember Puma. I always used to not like the Puma kits because they looked like they were skin tight on the players. You think back to like the Italy kits and Borussia Dortmund ones, and I think Tottenham back in the day. but I think we could do a whole episode on kits again. It's a very kind of
Yeah, I think we
fascinating kind
could.
of subject.
I'm trying to think. I'm sure it must have been. I mean, I didn't wear many other kits at the time, but I remember there was a period of Chelsea kits where they were made, and even I can't remember if it was maybe it was international. I think it was an international kit. It might have been the Brazil tops I was buying at the time, and I used to use them for five-a-side, and they always used to rip. Like they were made so flimsy. They were just like you could just literally tug on like the end of it and it just tear in half. In fact, saying that, I think Nicholas Jackson's kit ripped the other day
Yeah,
against
it did, yeah.
was it Villa? I think, or maybe it was another game. But so they're not as durable as they used to be. So, but I'm sure we'll do an episode on kits at some
And
point.
we both had issues with kits going in the washing machine or tumble dryer and all the kind of sponsorship.
That's not the that's not the
lettering.
manufacturer's fault though. That's
No, that's
my
not.
wife's fault.
I did buy a kit in Berlin when I went there last week, and they gave me a little leaflet saying how to kind of wash it, the temperature and instructions. So these kits nowadays, there's kind of like a procedure to make sure you look after it in a way.
Yeah, I've retired a lot of mine just for that reason, so I don't have to get them washed every 2 minutes. But yeah, I mean, moving on, obviously you've mentioned it a couple of times now. Fulham, Craven Cottage, Monday, big game. Before that, actually, before we get into the Fulham game, obviously the WSL was back on Sunday, I think is the first game. I think Chelsea women are actually opening the game. I think they play Spurs as the first game. Read this morning as well, there's been a change. Millie Bright is the captain of the team for the new season. So hoping I'll get to watch a lot more of Chelsea women. Obviously, Chelsea women's football in general seems to have taken another step in the right direction in terms of more people watching it. Obviously, the Euros, the World Cups helped in the last couple of summers as well. And a couple of games now, I think it's 3 maybe games per season get played at will get played at Stamford Bridge. And it seems like it's coming on now. I feel like it's got more of an acceptance in terms of how people perceive it, the perceptions of the game. And, there's always this at some point silly comments around the quality of the football, but it seems to be stepping in the right direction, getting the investment as well that it needs.
Yeah, definitely. I think if Chelsea can replicate all the success they've had at Emma Hayes this season, it'd be great. And I think you mentioned the 3 games being played at Stamford Bridge. The game against Tottenham, I think, is at Stamford Bridge this weekend. Big London derby as well. I think we're the favourites going into that one. And it's just the women's game is heading in a great direction. I think you were looking to get tickets when you were in Barcelona for a Barcelona women's game. I saw Chelsea-Barcelona in a semi-final of the Champions League at Stamford Bridge. I saw the first leg. And the quality was decent. It was very, very good. And a good atmosphere, very good turnout as well from the fans. And it looks like, I think I mentioned that in a previous episode, but even people walking around now with the kits and the names of the women's players, whether that be Lauren James, Melanie Lepose, Sam Kerr. So it's really great to see, and hopefully I'm going to be, some of those games are televised at Stamford Bridge. I'll try to get a ticket or watch it on TV.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that on Sunday. I'm just trying to find out what time it kicks off. So it's 5:30 kickoff on Sunday. You're right, it's at Stamford Bridge. Be a brilliant game. I think, need to start on a high as well. And like you said, I think Emma Hayes needs to get more credit, I think, than she gets in terms of her football awareness, football tactics, and football knowledge. Sometimes I think when she was commentating some of the men's games, I can't remember if it was the World Cup, the last one in Qatar, very good knowledge, and I don't say that in a disrespectful way in terms of I shouldn't be surprised by that, but it's just good to see that overlap, that crossover, someone with a bit more knowledge about them rather than listening to someone like Don Goodman or Andy Hinchcliffe or, sometimes I have to listen, Lee Hendry, another one, I have to listen to these people week in, week out who've played at the top level but don't really understand the game, I don't think. But whereas Emma Hayes, tactically, you can tell she's screwed on, she's got the knowledge and knows how to win as well. Yeah,
definitely. Really bright kind of football mind she is, and she's worked wonders with the Chelsea women's team. So really looking forward to seeing that success once more this season, hopefully.
I've got to bring it back down, unfortunately. I've got to bring it back to the men's team. I've got to bring the mood down a bit. So we've just been talking about positive things. We're talking about the women who I'm pretty sure will kickstart their season in the right way. But we have to get 3 points. I'm not going to say it's a big game because it's actually not a big game. Yes, it's a London derby. We should be beaten based on the previous performances. I think it might have been was it last season they beat us 2-1, I think,
Yeah,
at
and our
Craven
good
Cottage.
friend Willian scoring the opener,
That
and then
was
I
it,
think
yeah.
João Felix Red and Koulibaly
That
just
was
got
it.
one who trickled across the line, and then I think Vinicius scored the
Yeah,
winner.
that was it. So,
That's the one, yeah.
but bar that performance, I think we've had a really good. I think we've got a really good concrete record against Fulham at Craven Cottage. So, I mean, look, Pochettino, if he loses this game, he's going to be under massive pressure. Forget about the Carabao Cup, forget about, the FA Cup when we get to that point. But if we don't win this game, we are talking relegation form. We really are. I'm just looking now at the teams below us: Everton, Wolves, Bournemouth, Luton, Burnley, Sheffield United. We should not even be around those teams at the moment. This is embarrassment in terms of how we've been playing. Give me your thoughts going into this game on Monday. I mean, the good thing is we'll know by Monday how other teams have done in the league, in their fixtures. But surely, I don't want to say this, but surely we have to win this game. We should be winning this game.
Yeah, it's honestly one of those games where you look at Chelsea, you look at Fulham. It's a game that Chelsea have always won. They should be winning. That being said, even with our kind of full team at the moment after the injuries, it's still a bit of a hit and miss squad. I do think Cole Palmer starting will be a huge boost for us. Not having a number 9 though is going to be a bit not great. Even if it's Jackson's just having that target man you can try to get the ball to. I think we might actually not start with Brozier or Washington. I think it might be Palmer, who I mentioned, or Raheem Sterling potentially as a false 9, which I don't think is going to work in our favours at all. I think a player like Tim Ream will be able to intercept or clear anything that's kind of that Raheem Sterling is trying to get past him with. But yeah, I'm kind of not overly confident, if I'm completely honest. I think for these are the type of games that Fulham love to play, and Fulham fans will be quite confident going into it. They've had a fantastic season back in the Premier League last year under Marco Silva, sorry. And I saw them playing against Tottenham in the League Cup and managed to get a ticket to that one. They were the much better team over Tottenham. At first, I thought Tottenham were rubbish, but Tottenham have been fantastic in the Premier League. So I think it was credit to Fulham being really good on the night. And I spoke about him so much on this podcast, but João Palhinha, fantastic player. And I think he's going to boss that midfield on Monday. But no, a game that we should be winning. And like I said at the start of this recording, I think really hurt that 1-0 win against Brighton. Not only a win, but also a clean sheet. And we created some decent chances on the night. Kind of gives us a bit of a confidence and spurs us forward in the Premier League. And we're going to have, I think, 4 or 5 days to recover from it. So there's no excuse not to play our best 11 on the night. So I think Silva will come back in. I think Sterling will come back in. Still unsure of what's happening with Madueke and his situation. But it could be an opportunity for him to come back in. I think Mudryk as well. I talk about Cucurella, a player that I've criticised a fair bit on this podcast. But his games against Bournemouth and Brighton were very, very good, actually. He's just missing that goal. And he had a fantastic standing ovation from all the Chelsea fans when he got substituted against Brighton. So I think now that if he can get consistent game time in the starting 11 and start games for Chelsea, I think that goal is just around the corner. It's only a matter of time. And I think Monday, West London derby, fans would love him if he's able to get a goal at Craven Cottage. So yeah, I think good game for him to kind of start again. But like I said, I'm never confident now with Chelsea. But hopefully that Brighton game and Brighton win can change things and kind of work in our favour.
It's we will go for our predicted lineup shortly, but I do feel I agree with you 100%. I feel that the Brighton game, for me, that goal was so crucial for Nicholas Jackson, and it's a shame he's going to not be able to build on that momentum going into this game now on Monday, which I think when you get one goal, I'd only assume as a striker, you can't wait for the next game to come around to then try and do that again and replicate what he did against Brighton. But it's unfortunate. And I said after the Brighton game, there was a couple of discussions I was having with some Chelsea fans, and I was saying Raheem Sterling's going to start on Monday. He'll start as the false 9. Broja, Pochettino said on 2 separate occasions now, he's not ready to start a game. He's so far away from, and I understand it. I mean, if I remember correctly, I don't think he should have been back till either the back end of this month or October or sometime in November. So for him to be even playing football now, I think he got injured last November, I think it was.
Yeah, it's that
Yeah,
World Cup period. I think that friendly in the UAE against Aston Villa, so it would have been November,
yeah,
December time.
yeah. So I mean, for him to be back already off the back of the injury he's had is, he's well ahead of schedule, I think, as well. So I think Washington again. I don't think this is the sort of game you can bring. As much as he's been dubbed, a talented youngster, I think this is a really strange game if he was going to throw him into. I think the Carabao Cup would have been a perfect opportunity, very much like you had him in your predicted lineup to give him that taste of English football. But to throw him into a game against Fulham in a derby, Fulham who on their day, can turn up. You just mentioned them about Spurs, but I want to see Marc Cucurella keep his place at right back. I think he deserves it. My worry is obviously Ian Matson, who, if I read today, he potentially could be forced to be sold in January or in the summer due to the contract talks sort of stalling again. I get the sense that Pochettino isn't a favourite of him. He's not someone he's keen to keep in his squad. It's a strange one for me. So I don't think he'll feature. I think it will be back to Levi Colwill left back. You've mentioned Noni Madueke, who we haven't really spoken about, but one of the interesting things that Pochettino did say after the Brighton game was he was asked why he's not even on the bench. You'd think if he's fit, he should be on the bench, but Pochettino, I think, responded with, sometimes it's the choices you make.
Yeah.
It's a choice. So take that as you will, whether that means it's the choices that Pochettino's making or the choices that Noni Madueke's making off the pitch, which has forced Pochettino to decide not to play him. I mean, you decide, but starting lineups. Let's go with goalkeeper. I think we'd both decide to keep Sanchez surely in goal.
Yeah, I know we both had Petrovic to start against Brighton, but maybe given that Sanchez is a new goalkeeper, he's still finding his stride at Chelsea. I think maybe that's why Poch wanted to start Sanchez. And like we also said at the start of this recording, it was a game that Poch really wanted to take seriously and almost field a very strong 11. No disrespect to Petrovic, but maybe that's a game that Sanchez wanted to be in for Poch. So I think Sanchez has got to start again against Craven Cottage. He's our number one now for probably all competitions, and definitely at least the Premier League. So I think he'll be our starting keeper. Just needs to work on that kind of distribution and his kicking from the back.
Oh yeah, 100%. We can't be giving us nightmares like he did against Brighton. But what would your back four be if you was to go for a back four? I'm assuming Cucurella would possibly retain his place at right back.
Yeah, I think it's a big game from. I said at the beginning, I think I'd rather two natural fullbacks. I'm still going to stand by that. So I'd rather Maatsen at left back and Cucurella at right back. But like you just said, I think Poch might go for Colwill once more at left back and kind of drop Maatsen, who hasn't had that much game time and might be sold in January to raise funds for an Ivan Toney or another player. But I still feel like he's got a part to play between now and Christmas. But maybe this game is going to be one for more for Colwill to start at left back.
And your centre back partnership, I know. I feel like you're going to have put Thiago Silva back in there, but and I get the rationale behind it, but I just thought we played a lot better without him in the team defensively against Brighton. But I want to hear your thoughts about why. Stake your claim as to why Thiago Silva should be back in the as a partnership in centre back.
For me, it's just the experience and the leadership and the kind of, maybe he won't have the armband around his arm, but he'll be the kind of leader or captain on that pitch. He'll be the one bossing the defence. I do agree we played very well without him on Wednesday night, and he wasn't maybe at fault for the goal against Aston Villa last Sunday, but rested on Wednesday, I don't see why he won't start. And he's a player that would have played in a lot of these kind of derby-style games, or I call it a derby. It's not really a derby. It's one of those kind of cute West London derbies, I'd put it like that.
It's a derby. It's a derby.
No, it's a derby. It is a derby, yeah. I know it means a lot for Fulham fans, this game. I know that for a fact.
It's their cup final.
But exactly. Every time you go to Craven Cottage, they're just singing songs about Chelsea sticking the flag up their arse and all that. So,
yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's a game. For me, it's going to be. I went for Maatsen at left back, so I'm going to go with Colwill and Silva as the two centre backs, and possibly drop Disasi for this one. I'm still unconvinced by Disasi. I think he had a good game against Brighton, but he looks like he's always a bit, he's got a mistake in him. And I've watched a few YouTube videos, and a lot of kind of pundits or people have had him in his kind of their top 10 unconvincing players they've seen so far in the Premier League. So yeah, I'm not necessarily I agree with that, but I think this is a game maybe rest him and have Silva and Colwell as the two CBs.
You've got me thinking. I mean, I was questioning your thought process, but now I'm thinking. Now I'm having to like check myself because how am I going to make this work? No, I really want Colwell at centre back. I really do, but that means playing Ian Matson, and I'm 99.9% sure that Pochettino is not going to put Ian Matson at left back. So I don't know how to get around this. Obviously, Trevor Chalobah's still injured. Badia Shil is injured. Wesley Fofana is still injured. Although we have still got Malang Sarr. I think Malang Sarr is still on the books. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's knocking around Cobham somewhere. I mean, we could dust him off and roll him out Monday. No, I'd have to agree with you. No, I'd have to agree. I think I'd have to agree. I mean, I'd love to see Colwell. I think he's more, he's more impactful from a centre-back position. But I think just logistically and obviously from previous games, you can see, and Pochettino's come out and said he prefers Colwell at left-back. I mean, I don't know how he's got to that conclusion, but, he prefers him there.
Unless,
so I think I'd have to agree
you go for Cucurella a left-back, Disasi at right-back, and Silva at centre-back. That's also a possibility.
I was thinking that as well, but I think Disasi at right-back would limit our options going forward. And I think you need someone who's got a bit of... Cucurella, I think, is the player that I would trust more so there at right-back, makeshift. I think he's a player that I would... Just based off what we got to see against Brighton, and like you said, Matoma against you is no easy ask. So to do that with Matoma there, I thought he kept him very quiet in the game. So I'd stick with Cucurella. But let's move to the midfield, or the pivots, the double pivot as everyone likes to dub it these days. Who would your two in midfield be?
I think we spoke about. His face, Cole Palmer being so good as a number 10, and I think that probably means Enzo has to drop back in a double pivot. So I'm going to go with Caicedo and Enzo, possibly. But I wouldn't be surprised if Gallagher is he started on the bench against Brighton and Caicedo started. So it might be the other way around, and it might also be Palmer as a striker potentially on Monday. But my favourite kind of lineup would probably be Caicedo and Enzo as the two holding midfielders.
It's tricky because how have we spent £1 billion and I'm still struggling to formulate a lineup? I just can't believe this. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Conor Gallagher. Do I agree with that? No, I don't. But I think it'll be Conor Gallagher. I think Cole Palmer would potentially play on the right side with Enzo playing as the 10. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm just trying to think what Pochettino might try and do on the day. No, I'm going to go with what I would go with, actually. I would go with Enzo and, like you, Moises Caicedo as the two in midfield. I think Conor Gallagher, if he was to play, I would probably put him as the 10 and I would put Cole Palmer on the right.
So I'd go for Cole Palmer as the 10, Mudryk and Sterling as the two wingers. I'd actually go with Broja as a striker. I've said it before, but if you're fit enough to be on the bench, I think you're fit enough to maybe start games and maybe just test it out for 45 minutes, take him off at halftime, change things up. But I think it's a game, we spoke about being in the relegation battle if we lose this one. And we can't afford to play this game without a natural number 9 or striker. And I just know for a fact it's going to be Sterling playing there and it's just going to flop and not work. I would go with Broja. I would give him at least 45 minutes as this number 9. He had 10 minutes against Brighton. He had about 15-20 minutes against Villa. I think he's slowly building up his... It's a massive risk, but I do also feel like we did maybe rush him back a bit too soon. I know we were expecting maybe to see more towards October, November time back in the fall for matchday squads, but I don't know. We're so limited with options. I think he's one more game away from starting one, so it might be one too soon. But I think Burnley, that's a game where he's got to be starting, especially if Jackson's not still struggling with form or at least playing kind of some part. If Jackson hasn't scored after 60 minutes, you switch things up. But I'm going to go with
Do you know what?
Why not?
I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to give my reasons as to why, because I've always said, and I've said this on the podcast, if you're on the bench, you can play. You can play. Because if Sterling gets injured 5 minutes into the game, who's coming on? It's going to be Brozier. So, or maybe you put Cole Palmer in there, but I can't see that happening. So I'm going to go with your three, Mudryk. Who did you have? Mudryk,
Mudryk, Sterling, Palmer as the
Sterling,
10,
Palmer,
and Brozier as the 9.
and then Brozier. I'm going to go with that because I think we need to give him minutes. And if he comes off after, 60 minutes and we bring on Washington or, we put Sterling as that false nine, I think you need to start with the striker, try and win the game, go get a 2-0 cushion, and then maybe you change things after that. I think that would be, I'd rather do that than the other way around. We're struggling, we need a goal, we're bringing on Brozier. I think we have to do it the other way around. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah, let's go for that as a lineup. I think let's quickly move on to the predictions because very hard to predict a lineup. I think the scoreline is going to be even more hard to predict as well. But what would you go with? What would be your ideal scoreline to be after 90 minutes? Well, 98 minutes, according to what the score.
I know we just said
what it might be.
Our favourite 11 with Brozier, but Brozier's realistically not going to start. It's going to be Sterling. And if Sterling starts as a false nine, I just can't see us scoring. All those players that we might have listed, I just can't see them scoring a goal, possibly from Palmer. But he's still a bit raw. He looks more kind of a creator at the moment than a goal scorer. He's still only 20. He's still very young. So I'm going to go with 0-0. I think it's going to be one of those games. I think similar to the Bournemouth game, similar to the home leg of this same fixture at Stamford Bridge last season. I think it's going to be a 0-0. I think both teams will have chances, but it almost might feel that game where they're almost happy just to get a point each from it.
It's not a fair shout, but I'm going to say 1-0 to Chelsea. And that's actually given them some credit, only because the last couple of predictions I've always said we're going to lose. The reason I'm saying that is because I think Fulham have conceded 10 goals so far this season. I think they scored the same as us, 5, but they are quite leaky at the back. Now, if Pochettino, like you just said, has got any sense, he'll play Brozier and he'll possibly switch that to Sterling. But either way, 3 points is 3 points. If it's a dirty game, in terms of the performance, we have to dig deep and we have to play for the 1-0, then let's do that. Let's do that so we can build up some momentum, build on the performances. So I'll take a 1-0 at this point. Shamelessly, I'll take the 1-0 from them. But we'll have to see. Monday, 8 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, it's not a way you want to start your week with a defeat. So let's hope we can get 3 points and we can build from there. And Burnley after that, then we have an international break in between Burnley and Arsenal, I think, don't we?
I think so. Then I think it's Brentford before Arsenal. Or is that after Arsenal? I think it's after Arsenal. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's after. That's when the fixtures become a bit more serious after that.
So just as long as we can go into that international break with no injuries and come out of it with no injuries, then I think that'd be a massive kind of accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, 100%. Now, before we wrap up, obviously the 100th episode, if you didn't hear the announcement at the very start of this episode, we will be running a competition for the whole of October. So there'll be more information coming out on our Instagram and our Twitter account as well about what you will need to do to ensure you're in the hat. So I was going to say the virtual hat. You're in the virtual hat to win some of the brilliant prizes that we're hoping to give away over the next couple of weeks or so. There'll be more information coming out of that. But Theo, one of the things I wanted to end on today was around just some of your favourite moments. Pick your top 3 moments as a Chelsea fan from the day that you can remember supporting Chelsea to the time of today. Just 3 moments of Chelsea. Could be a kick, could be a player, could be a moment, could be a goal. 3 things from Chelsea for the 100th episode that you can just share with everyone.
Yeah, I think this could be a topic in itself for an episode, talking about memories and favourite moments. But for me, something that just stands out was being at the parade when we won the Premier League under Mourinho in his first season. The bus used to go, before I was born, the bus used to go through my road, and then that kind of switched to Fulham Road. But I remember my mum took me. I was kind of stood on the side of the Fulham Road, and I just will always remember this, almost like it's still kind of engraved in my head. But just Mourinho looking at me and giving me a thumbs up as I was screaming his name and just waving like crazy, and I just felt so special. Getting a thumbs up from the special one just felt so special.
Literally.
And he just looked so cool as well, just leaning on the edge of the bus and giving thumbs ups to the fans, and it just felt so special. And I think I still have the kind of pictures, because at the time I had a digital camera and I managed to get those pictures printed. I think I posted
quality.
them on the Instagram account a while ago, but just memories like that just stay with you forever. So that was a very special moment. Another moment maybe that really stands out is, I think I published it on the Instagram today. It's the anniversary of when I won a signed shirt on Twitter through a competition that was run on the Chelsea Twitter account. And I just remember coming out of a maths exam. I really properly messed it up. I remember, and I was quite annoyed. I just opened my phone. I had a BlackBerry at the time. It was before the whole smartphone era. I look at Twitter on my BlackBerry, and it's the official Chelsea account saying, "Congratulations to my username. You've just won the Chelsea signed shirt competition. Please DM us your details." And then within a day, I received this signed shirt from Frank Lampard, Paulo Ferreira, Petr Cech. I think it's Ross Turnbull. And weirdly enough, it was Zach Galifianakis and Will Ferrell, because I think they were in the US in Seattle over the summer. So they all signed it, and I've got that shirt in my room now. So that definitely stands out. And it's a nice shirt. It's the Samsung one with the gold badge and gold.
Quality.
Yeah. So that's definitely stands out. And last memory, I think, just running down the Fulham Road when Chelsea won the Champions League for the first time. Just screaming and not being able to sleep at night. And then there was just helicopters just going over my house all night. I just remember having so much adrenaline pumping through my body that I just couldn't sleep. And then eventually when I did fall asleep, just waking up thinking, was last night a dream? And then it wasn't. And the helicopters were still buzzing, obviously switching on Sky Sports News, rewatching the highlights. It was special. And then obviously having that same feeling again when we won it in 2021 was just as special. It's weird. I remember what I ate at halftime. I had a brownie at halftime when it was still 0-0 against Bayern Munich. It's just small things like that you just stay with you forever. So yeah, I'm going to go with those three moments: the Mourinho thumbs up, the Chelsea signed shirt, and the kind of Champions League ecstasy and euphoria that I felt.
I think mine aren't very different to yours, but I think the big one for me, and more so the player, was Gianfranco Zola. Just him as a player, and obviously the goal that will always exactly very much like you just said about the brownie, the goal from the corner. That goal, I exactly remember the moment that goal went in, what I was wearing, everything, because it was just one of those timeless moments that, you know, people have scored better goals than that, but just that goal for your club, it was just like, I remember kids in the playgrounds trying to replicate that exact goal. It was just, and him as a player, I mean, you know,
his assist against the Bayern Munich legends a couple of weeks ago was amazing as well.
He still got it.
He still got it. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't lose that sort of quality in that. So for me, Gianfranco Zola is probably one of the best Premier League players of, bar Joe Cole, who I think is very underrated, but for Chelsea. But Zola for me is just the top creme de la creme of players that have played in the Premier League, but also for Chelsea as well. The first time winning the Champions League, I generally think I drank for 2 days straight. I think I just literally drank. I think I had to call in sick for work on the Monday because I was technically still drunk, I think. I just drank and we just partied. It was just one of those games that we shouldn't have won as well. You know, you think back to the game, we shouldn't have won the game. We shouldn't have won. It's just one of those games for me. So I think that was the big one for me. And the other one was West Brom. I was talking to someone about this when we won under Conte, when we
Michy Batshuayi scoring.
Michy Batshuayi, and I just remember that game, and that just, I don't know, it was always stuck out for me. It's probably not one of my most memorable. I mean, you said we could do a podcast episode on this, and I think you're right. But just those three moments, those three memories, I think more so because what was happening outside of football in my life at that time, that kind of was something that I needed at that time as well, if that makes sense. So it just kind of gave me that bit more balance in my life, and just that little small win in life at the time when I was going through what I was going through, just that always will come back to me. So I think that was probably one of the most memorable, but there's loads. I mean, I think we maybe during the international break we can reel off a longer list, because I think there's more than that. But for me, Zola is Chelsea. I mean, I'd love to see him come back one day, and if not manage the club, but at least have some sort of big role at the club, because I think he's just an absolute legend.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a bit and say a fourth, just because you mentioned kind of Zola and all that. But like you said, we need to do a full episode on this. But just hearing Nessun Dorma being sung at Stamford Bridge for Gianluca Vialli's kind of tribute match against Bayern Munich a few weeks ago, that was special. That was really, really special. And his whole family were on the pitch as well, seeing both sets of kind of legends of Bayern Munich and Chelsea being present for that moment. And that was probably one of the most enjoyable games I've been to in a very, very long time at Stamford Bridge. I'm really pleased I managed to get out to that. I know you unfortunately were kind of abroad, so you couldn't make it. But just a fantastic kind of evening, kind of really good atmosphere, and that kind of tribute to Vialli with Nessun Dorma being sang was the icing on the cake. But like you said, I think in October we're going to have to revisit this subject, because there's a lot more memories I want to share now.
I'll have to go back and dig into my brain as well and remember all of them. But yeah, we've got loads. I'm sure there'll be people who watch and listen to this podcast. They'll have loads as well. So please make sure you drop them in the comments, or interact with both of us, and through obviously our Instagram account from the Shed End, our Twitter account as well. Just interact with us. Tell us your moments, your memories growing up, or even present day. If you've got any good memories of present day, let us know what they are. But also all the topics as well, what we've spoken about today, let us know your thoughts about them as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit up the Instagram and Twitter, because that's where the competition announcements will be made. So they'll be coming out hopefully over the next couple of days or so. Just keep peeled. Make sure you've got your notifications on. Theo, as always, it's a pleasure. 100 episodes into From the Shed End. How does it feel?
To 100 more, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, to 100 more. Hopefully we're winning things by then. We're winning Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues by then. But thanks as always, Theo. We'll be back next week, I'm sure, with another episode, 101. But until then, stay safe, enjoy the weekend, and we'll be back next week.